What's up, everyone, and welcome back to HOA Karen Exposed. I'm your host, and if you're new here, this is where we showcase the most outrageous, entitled behavior from HOA board members and neighborhood Karens who think they rule the world. And boy, do I have a story for you today that will make your blood boil. Picture this. It's 5 a.m., 5 in the morning. I'm fast asleep in my own home when I hear rustling outside. I look out my window, and what do I see? An HOA board member, let's call her Karen, literally on her hands and knees measuring my grass with a ruler. I kid you not, folks. This woman was so obsessed with enforcing HOA rules that she showed up at dawn with measuring equipment. But wait, it gets worse. When I confronted her about trespassing on my property, she had the audacity to threaten me with a lawsuit over, get this, 0.2 inches of grass growth. That's right, 0.2 inches, less than a quarter of an inch. If you think that sounds insane, just wait until you see the footage. But first, if you love watching entitled people get their comeuppance, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because we post new Karen content every week. Now, let's dive into this absolute madness. So here's what happened. I have security cameras around my property, which, by the way, every homeowner should have, especially if you live in an HOA community. The footage I'm about to show you was captured at exactly 5:03 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. Look at this. There she is, Karen in all her glory, creeping around my front yard like some kind of grass detective. She's wearing what appears to be a bathrobe and slippers, because apparently, measuring grass is such an urgent matter that you can't even wait to get dressed properly. Watch this part carefully. She's pulling out what looks like a measuring tape and a clipboard. A clipboard, people. This woman came prepared for a full scientific investigation of my lawn. She's measuring different sections, taking notes, and oh my goodness, she's actually taking photos of my grass. The HOA rules in our community state that grass should be maintained at a maximum height of 3 inches. Now, I had just mowed my lawn 3 days prior, so I knew I was well within the guidelines. But apparently, that wasn't good enough for our self-appointed lawn enforcement officer. Here's where it gets really creepy. She's not just measuring random spots. She's being systematic about it. She's checking areas near my driveway, by the mailbox, around the flower beds. This woman is conducting a full forensic analysis of my yard at 5 in the morning. Now I'm watching all this unfold from my bedroom window, and I'm thinking, this cannot be real. So I throw on some clothes and head outside to confront this trespasser. And let me tell you, what happened next was beyond belief. The moment I stepped outside, Karen freezes like a deer in headlights. She's literally mid-measurement, ruler in hand, caught red-handed trespassing on my property. But does she apologize? Does she explain herself? Oh no, folks. She doubles down. I approach her calmly and say, "Excuse me, what are you doing on my property at 5 a.m.? And this woman, I kid you not, looks me dead in the eye and says, "I'm conducting an official HOA inspection." An official inspection. At 5 a.m. without notice. On private property. So I tell her, "Ma'am, you're trespassing on my property, and I need you to leave immediately." But Karen isn't having it. She starts waving her clipboard around like it's some kind of legal document, and informs me that as an HOA board member, she has the right to inspect properties for violations. Now let me be clear about something for all you viewers out there. HOA board members do not have the right to trespass on your property without proper notice and consent. Even if there's a suspected violation, there are legal procedures that must be followed. You can't just show up at someone's house at dawn and start measuring their grass. But Karen is completely convinced she's in the right. She shows me her measurements and points to a section of my lawn where, according to her ruler, the grass is 3.2 inches tall. 3.2 inches. We're talking about 2/10 of an inch over the limit. So here I am, standing in my own front yard at 5 a.m., being lectured by a woman in a bathrobe about 2/10 of an inch of grass. I thought it couldn't get more ridiculous, but oh boy, was I wrong. Karen pulls out her phone and starts taking more pictures of the violation. She's acting like she just uncovered some major crime scene. Then she looks at me with this smug expression and drops the bombshell that made my jaw hit the ground. She says, and I quote, "If you don't remedy this violation immediately, the HOA will have no choice but to pursue legal action against you." Legal action. Over 0.2 inches of grass. I'm not exaggerating. She literally threatened to sue me over grass that was slightly taller than a pencil eraser. At this point, I'm trying to keep my composure because I know I'm being recorded by my security cameras, and I want this interaction documented properly. So I ask her, "Are you seriously threatening legal action over 2/10 of an inch of grass growth?" And she nods vigorously and says, "Rules are rules." But wait, it gets even better. Karen then informs me that I have 24 hours to cut my grass to compliance or face fines starting at $50 per day, escalating to $100, then $200, and eventually leading to a lien on my property. All because of 0.2 inches of grass. Now, I've been dealing with HOA nonsense for years, and I've seen some pretty ridiculous stuff. But this was next-level insanity. This woman was so power-drunk that she thought she could intimidate me with legal threats over something so trivial that you'd need a magnifying glass to see the difference. All right, folks, this is where things get interesting. I've been patient up to this point, but Karen just pushed the wrong button. See, I'm not just going to roll over and let some entitled HOA board member bully me on my own property. So I decided to give her a reality check she won't soon forget. First, I calmly explained to Karen that she was currently trespassing on my property and that her official inspection was completely unauthorized and illegal. I informed her that HOA inspections require proper notice, typically 24 to 48 hours in advance, and must be conducted during reasonable hours, not at 5 a.m. Karen's face started to change as I continued. I told her that her actions constituted harassment and that I was documenting everything for potential legal action of my own. Suddenly, her smug confidence began to waver. Then I dropped my ace in the hole. I pulled out my phone and showed her the HOA bylaws. Yes, I actually have them downloaded because I've dealt with this nonsense before. Section 4.2 clearly states that any property inspections must be scheduled in advance with the homeowner present, and emergency inspections can only be conducted for safety hazards or water damage. I asked Karen, "Is my grass a safety hazard? Is there water damage? Is this an emergency that justifies trespassing on my property at 5 a.m.? She just stood there, mouth agape, because she knew she had absolutely no legal ground to stand on. But I wasn't done yet. I told her that not only was I going to file a complaint with the HOA board about her unauthorized trespassing and harassment, but I was also considering filing a police report for trespassing and potentially pursuing a restraining order if this behavior continued. You should have seen the look on her face. The woman who was so confident about threatening me with lawsuits suddenly realized that she might be the one facing legal consequences. Her whole demeanor changed from aggressive to defensive in about 2 seconds flat. Now, Here's where the story gets even more interesting. Our little 5 a.m. confrontation apparently woke up some of the neighbors, and they started coming outside to see what all the commotion was about. And let me tell you, their reactions were priceless. First, my next-door neighbor Mike comes out in his pajamas, takes one look at the situation, and asks, "What's going on? Is everything okay?" When I explained that Karen was measuring my grass and threatening lawsuits, Mike just started laughing. Not a little chuckle, but full-on belly laughs. Mike looks at Karen and says, "Lady, are you serious right now? It's 5 a.m. and you're out here with a ruler?" Other neighbors started gathering, and let me tell you, they were not impressed with Karen's antics. Mrs. Johnson from across the street, who's been in this neighborhood for 20 years, comes over and tells Karen that this is the most ridiculous thing she's ever seen. She says, "Honey, we've all got grass that grows. That's what grass does. If you're going to measure everyone's lawn at 5 a.m., you're going to need a lot more rulers." The best part was when my neighbor Sarah, who happens to be a lawyer, joined the conversation. She took one look at the situation and informed Karen that what she was doing could constitute harassment and trespassing, and that threatening legal action over such a minor issue could be considered frivolous litigation. Karen's face went from red to white in about 5 seconds. Suddenly, she was surrounded by 6 or 7 neighbors, all telling her how unreasonable she was being. The woman who was so confident about her official inspection was now clearly regretting her decision to wage war over 0.2 inches of grass. But the neighbors weren't done yet. They started sharing their own HOA horror stories, like the time Karen sent violation notices for Halloween decorations being up 3 days too long, or when she tried to fine someone for having the wrong shade of mulch in their flower beds. After this incident, I decided to reach out to a legal expert to get some professional insight into Karen's behavior and whether her actions were actually legal. I spoke with attorney Jennifer Martinez, who specializes in HOA law, and her analysis was eye-opening. According to attorney Martinez, Karen's actions violated several legal principles. First, trespassing on private property without proper notice or consent is illegal, regardless of whether you're on an HOA board. Board members don't have special privileges that allow them to ignore property rights. Second, the timing of the inspection was completely inappropriate. Most HOA bylaws specify that inspections must occur during reasonable hours, typically between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. on weekdays. A 5 a.m. inspection could be considered harassment under many local ordinances. Attorney Martinez also pointed out that threatening legal action over such a minor violation, especially one that's barely measurable, could potentially be considered frivolous litigation. Courts don't look kindly on lawsuits that waste judicial resources over trivial matters. But here's the most important part. Even if there was a legitimate violation, the proper procedure would be to send a written notice giving the homeowner a reasonable amount of time to address the issue, usually 10 to 14 days. You can't just show up at someone's house and demand immediate compliance. The attorney also mentioned that Karen's behavior could potentially open her up to personal liability. If an HOA board member acts outside their authority or engages in harassment, they can be held personally responsible for their actions, separate from any HOA insurance or protection. In other words, Karen's power trip could end up costing her personally if I decided to pursue legal action. The woman who was so eager to threaten lawsuits could find herself on the receiving end of one. So what happened after this ridiculous confrontation? Well, let me tell you, the aftermath was almost as entertaining as the original incident. First, I did exactly what I promised Karen I would do. I filed a formal complaint with the HOA board about her unauthorized trespassing and harassment. I included copies of my security footage, photos of her measuring my grass, and testimonials from the neighbors who witnessed the incident. The response was swift and decisive. Within 48 hours, I received a call from the HOA board president apologizing for Karen's behavior and assuring me that this was not authorized or sanctioned by the board. Apparently, Karen had been acting on her own, without any official approval for her dawn grass measuring expedition. But it gets better. The board president informed me that they were launching an investigation into Karen's conduct and that she would be receiving a formal reprimand. They also clarified that no violation notice would be issued for my grass, since the inspection was unauthorized and improperly conducted. I also found out that I wasn't the only one who had complained about Karen's overzealous enforcement tactics. Apparently, several other homeowners had filed complaints about her aggressive behavior, including unannounced inspections and threatening letters over minor issues. The best part? Remember how Karen threatened me with escalating fines and a potential lien on my property? Well, it turns out she didn't have the authority to impose those penalties anyway. Only the full HOA board can authorize fines, and they require a formal hearing process where the homeowner can present their case. As for my grass, I decided to have a little fun with the situation. I hired a professional landscaping service to come out and measure every blade of grass in my yard to ensure it was exactly 2.8 inches, well within the HOA guidelines. Then I sent Karen a certified letter with the professional measurement report, just to make sure she knew I was in full compliance. The landscaper thought it was hilarious and even gave me a discount for what he called the most entertaining job of his career. He said he'd never been asked to provide forensic-level documentation of grass height before. And there you have it, folks. The incredible story of how an entitled HOA Karen thought she could intimidate me with a ruler and a clipboard, only to find out that homeowners have rights too. This whole experience taught me an important lesson. Never let bullies, whether they're HOA board members or just entitled neighbors, walk all over you. Know your rights, document everything, and don't be afraid to stand up for yourself when someone tries to abuse their authority. If you enjoyed watching Karen get her comeuppance, make sure to smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you never miss our latest entitled people content. We're constantly finding new stories of Karens getting what they deserve, and trust me, you don't want to miss out. Also, drop a comment below and let me know. What's the most ridiculous HOA rule you've ever encountered? Have you ever had to deal with an overzealous board member like Karen? I love reading your stories, and who knows, your experience might be featured in a future video. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you think Karen got what she deserved, and share it with anyone who's ever had to deal with HOA drama. Together, we can expose these entitled bullies and help homeowners know their rights. Thanks for watching HOA Karen Exposed, and remember, just because someone has a clipboard and an attitude doesn't mean they have the right to harass you on your own property. I'll see you in the next video, where we'll be covering another outrageous Karen encounter that will blow your mind. Until next time, keep standing up to the Karens of the world, and I'll catch you later.